ancient times, when the enlightened one still walked upon the dusty paths of the mortal realm, there was a story quietly passed down through countless human lifetimes. It is the story of an impoverished, nameless old woman who possessed a heart of boundless reverence. After a long day of begging for alms, she could only afford a meager amount of oil, barely enough to fill a single lamp to offer as a devotional gift. That night, an impermanent gale swept through the vihara, extinguishing thousands of brilliant lamps filled with the fragrant oils of princes and noblemen. Yet, only the flickering lamp of the old woman remained burning brightly, piercing through the darkness. Even when the great disciples used their supernatural powers to blow it out, that flame remained unshaken, not losing even a tiny spark. At that moment, the enlightened one smiled and revealed the teaching. That light was ignited by a heart of pure virtue, absolutely selfless and without expectation. Thus, no wind could ever extinguish it. The core of the philosophy of cause and effect and the cycle of samsara does not lie in grand, ostentatious external forms, but originates from the subtle seeds hidden deep within the consciousness of the sower. Every virtuous thought that arises, every action stemming from simple compassion, are immortal seeds sown into the eternal flow of the universe, certain to wait for the day they bloom and bear fruit. Living amidst the turbulent currents of life, kindness sometimes takes on the appearance of foolishness, enduring many disadvantages. Giving away kindness in hopes of bringing a bit of warmth to fellow beings, yet receiving only indifferent glances and cold shoulders in return. Helping others with all one's heart, sacrificing personal interests, only to look back and find oneself struggling in solitude, without a single word of recognition, without even a tiny token of recompense. Sadness is inevitable for a sentient being with a heart of flesh and bone. How can one avoid the bitter ache of missed rhythms when sincerity is dropped amidst indifference? That feeling of emptiness creeps into every breath, weighing the soul down with questions about justice. But resentment seems to be an invisible poison. The more one drinks, the more one fractures their own soul. Let the sadness pass naturally, like grey clouds coming and going in a silent sky. Do not hasten to cling to it and doubt the eternal principle of goodness. The cosmic law has remained silent, yet absolutely impartial for eternity. Observing the workings of all things around us, one will see no cloud dissipates without turning into raindrops to cool the world. No dry leaf falls without turning into humus to nourish the roots and branches. Everything is merely transforming from one form to another in a perpetual cycle. Kindness and virtue also possess such a miraculous cycle. When a favor is given, even if the world forgets it, even if the recipient denies it, the vast earth and sky have silently recorded it in full. Virtuous intentions sown into the void, seemingly formless and fragile as mist, are actually creating subtle and powerful energy waves radiating into the infinite realm. No benevolent magnetic field is ever annihilated. They are simply merging into the universe to create a protective veil of tranquility for the very person who initiated them. Current disadvantages, injustices yet to be understood, and sacrifices yet to be repaid are merely the outer shell of a germinating process. Like a tiny seed quietly taking deep root in the moist heart of Mother Earth. Though the soil may be dark and cold, though the sprout must endure much pressure from the endless darkness, it is still an essential process to nurture a resilient life. Do not be quick to blame the land for being too barren, nor the night for being too melancholy. All silent hiding is meant to wait for a breakthrough moment to rise and catch the sunlight. Looking back to ancient times, when humans still walked barefoot on the earth, breathing in rhythm with the flora and all creation, the cycle of cause and effect seemed to be perceived more serenely and insightfully. People sowed seeds into poor fields and calmly waited for the moon to wane, and then wax again, waiting through seasons of rain, sun, frost, and cold wind, without demanding that upon waking tomorrow, there must immediately be sweet fruit. They understood to the core that nature's time has its own rhythm, which cannot be forced or bartered with by human shallow impatience. But returning to the current lifestyle besieged by competition, the fierce and hurried whirlpool makes people gradually accustomed to instantaneous values. Sowing a good deed and expecting immediate gratitude, happening to offer a smile and then waiting for a reciprocal look. When the feedback does not happen as desired, the seeds of resentment and doubt begin to sprout, withering the very original, radiant, and primordial virtuous heart. The breakdown of faith in goodness does not come from the law of cause and effect operating incorrectly, but actually stems from an excessive craving for results that can be measured or grasped immediately. We unintentionally turn compassion into a fair transaction, a trade-off of debt and repayment. And where there is a transaction, there will inevitably be resentment when the profit and loss do not balance. True kindness, according to the spirit of the right Dharma, must be an act of natural letting go, without attachment to the idea that I am the giver, there is a receiver, and there is a gift being given. When the boundary of giving and receiving is blurred, kindness truly flies freely in the void, no longer bound by any retribution. A sprout that wants to grow lush to greet the morning sun must wait for all conditions to converge. It needs underground veins to silently nourish it from the depths, a bit of decaying minerals from the layer of mulch on the surface, the warmth of the sun to dispel the cold night dew, and most importantly, a period of tireless, diligent waiting. The virtuous human heart is similarly subtle and ever-changing. When doing good deeds, the blessings of merit do not manifest immediately as wealth, fame, or sycophantic praise. For if cause and effect were instantaneous and easy to calculate, goodness would become a tool for profit, and kindness would only be a camouflage for deep-seated greed. Good fruit sometimes comes very slowly, so slowly that the sower of virtuous seeds has forgotten that they once sowed, once gave selflessly. But it is precisely in that serene, selfless forgetting that the seed truly finds the freedom to sprout, break through, and bloom. When the merit has gathered enough conditions, it will naturally knock on the door without the need for strenuous searching, demanding, or begging. It may come in the form of a sudden stroke of luck saving us from a calamity, or a stranger reaching out to support us in a moment of collapse, or simply a deep sense of peace creeping into every dreamless sleep. Since ancient times, Eastern philosophy has cherished the yielding and soft nature of water. Water always possesses the characteristic of seeking low places, being humble and tolerant, containing all the impurities of the world, yet carrying within it a latent power that can pierce through solid rock and move mountains. One who maintains a steadfast, virtuous heart amidst a multitude of betrayals and deceptions is like one who preserves the original clear nature of cool water, though clouded by the deceptive calculations of the external environment. Water silently purifies itself through layers of the gravel and sand of time, only to offer the world a pure and elegant sweetness again. Choosing to be a kind person is not to prove oneself superior or extraordinary, nor to engrave one's name on stone tablets for 1,000 years, but simply to follow one's bright inner nature, the original self seeking the silent peace of the soul. Patiently smiling in the face of immediate disadvantages is the act of polishing the sharp edges of the ego, shaving away narrow, selfish desires so that the heart becomes vast and expansive, capable of containing even the indifference of the human world. The more we hold on to indignation for being treated unfairly, the more we imprison ourselves in the jail of affliction. Accepting disadvantage as a natural occurrence, a stepping stone for the sublimation of consciousness, is the key to opening the door of inner liberation. A sower of virtuous seeds may have to pass through youthful years full of instability and storms, enduring countless injustices, obstacles, and overwhelming hardships. The world looking in may sigh, considering it foolish to take so much toil and disadvantage upon oneself, obscuring the sharp cleverness needed for survival. But stay steadfast, close your eyes, and look clearly into the infinite cycle of a transmigrating human life. The destiny of those who hold on to compassion until their final breath is, strangely enough, always glowing with a solid peace, like a majestic mountain standing tall before a tempest. It is not necessarily overflowing wealth, silk, or glittering gold on the outside, but a noble, quiet blessing deep within the roots of the soul. When the storms of life strike with unpredictable events, a great tree with deep roots, thanks to having clung tightly to the soil of virtue and tasted every injustice and patience, still stands tall without falling or breaking its branches. The soul is absent of cruel schemes and calculations, absent of accumulating debts of karma. Therefore, at night, sleep is as light as a feather, not tortured or torn by the ghosts of regret or anxiety. The harmonious aura radiating from a person who lives fully in virtue is the best and most natural feng shui, protecting them and their descendants through countless ups and downs. There is no need to search for sacred lands to pray for peace. Kindness itself is the most sacred temple for the soul to take refuge in. The journey of human life, after all, is just a restless pilgrimage across the shores of impermanent birth and death. Earthly wealth, silks and satins, and resounding fame will one day vanish like the void's mist, returning to the hazy dust. When one breathes their last and closes their eyes, no one can take even a single cent or a noble title. Only karma and the seeds of compassion, the love given without calculation, are the only luggage that follows each life through the infinite, endless cycles of rebirth. Do not, because of a bit of early season cold wind, hasten to cut down the Bodhi tree that is currently budding green leaves. Do not, because kindness was a few times cruelly rejected, permanently lock the door of the heart, afraid to reach out and offer warmth to the world. Just live quietly, just smile gently, and sow seeds across the human realm. Though sincerity may sometimes be trampled and buried in the mire by the world, the vast and compassionate universe will always reach out its arms to embrace, comfort, and heal every bleeding wound. Preserving a virtuous heart intact is like keeping a small, lonely flame in a cold, stormy winter night. That flame, though fragile, is not only to warm travelers lost in ignorance, but, first and most fundamentally, to keep one's own heart from freezing and perishing in a world that seems to be growing colder and more suspicious by the day. Let everything in life follow nature like flowing water and drifting clouds, blooming and bearing fruit according to conditions. As long as the seed in the heart does not carry evil thoughts or the color of selfishness, sooner or later, a forest of shading trees will rise in the land that was once a parched desert. Eternal peace is not found anywhere far or difficult. It will automatically sprout and take deep, lasting roots from the very gentle soil of boundless compassion. Every disadvantage today is a precious nutrient nurturing a tomorrow where the soul is free to dwell peacefully amidst the vast earth and sky.